Well, I sold my 77 Ford short box four-wheel drive F-150 because I just lost interest in it. So I got my Land Cruiser in here and I'm working on it. And this is all screwed up. The heater duct, can't find them anymore. I looked and looked, so I'm gonna make one really quick. So if you want to learn how to do that, stay tuned. Okay, so I pulled this heater vent out. I'm gonna copy that, this pattern right here. They both match, they're the same size. I got my fiberglass mat wetted out. I got this treated with a mold releaser, so I'm just gonna copy that real quick. All right, so I made this part, or this is actually called a splash. I took a splash off of that heater vent that I pulled out of there. And I don't want to get in there and splash that, so I'm pretty sure they're the same. I measured them, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this on there just to make sure. I'm going to fit this and make sure that they're both the same. All right, there it is. It fits nicely. So a lot of you are probably like, oh, I don't want a fiberglass one of those. The original part is rubber. Well, this is how you can start making the mold for the rubber. So I'll make a fiberglass one first, and then I'll show you how to make a rubber mold or a silicone mold to make a rubber part. Okay, this is what we got. So this is a plug of that. And how I made that plug was I copied that, pulled it off there. On the inside here, I copied that, I pulled it off there. And then I copied the inside of the thing that I pulled off of there. That's that plug. So I put those two together, I straightened them up, and then I filled in the edges there, or the in-between from there to there. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a one-off fiberglass piece of this, and I'm gonna do it really quick because, like always, once I start one of my projects, we get super busy. So I just got a bunch of orders to make a bunch of aircraft wings, the tips of the wings. So now I gotta finish this up real quick. Here's the dilemma of the way to do this. So fiberglass loves to shrink when you do it. So if you coat that with fiberglass, it's gonna wanna shrink up around that. So I don't really have the time to go and fix this draft. You know, it's pretty good. It's good enough for what I want. But I really need a good straight draft or maybe a slightly negative draft if I'm gonna coat that in one piece. And then I would have to do what's called a pedestal mold. And that would mean that this would have to be mounted on top of a build board, sorry. And then I would have to fiberglass out so that when I fiberglassed a part onto it, I would laminate down onto the bottom base. And then you stick your wedge under there and that's what pops your part off. There you go. That's a pretty big industrial secret right there. A lot of people don't know what a pedestal mold is or what it's for. But a pedestal mold is for things like this. I actually have some pedestal molds up there. These are aviation intakes. Those are, but you see the draft's a little better on them. The pedestal's on the other side of that one. That one has a pedestal on the bottom of it. Those actually aren't very good examples, but that's what it's for. Instead, I'm gonna do a flexible mold out of fiberglass. Yes, I am. I know that doesn't make sense. Fiberglass does flex, and if you use the right materials, we're gonna use a 7500 cloth, and we're gonna put a seam on this, on the bottom here. And I'm gonna laminate that seam. I'll just show you instead of explaining it. And the reason is this thing never stays on. Even when they're brand new, it never stays on there. So I'm gonna make this so this clamps into place onto that. Let's get started on it. The other thing I noticed is my heater is not even mounted down, which I wish I would have known that before I started this, because I did what's called a template build on this. So I built this in place. Anyway, I'm just gonna leave that. And I'm gonna finish this up really quick just to get to the point. There's a lot of good little tidbits of information in here, especially the way we're gonna do this. So let's just get this done and get to work. All right, I'm in the dirty room. That's what we call this. One coat of wax on that so far. I don't know if you did see that little imperfection that was right there. I just filled it with wax. No big deal. Let it dry, coat it again. And I'm gonna do minimum of 5 layers. This is a process that you don't want to rush. You go ahead and just let that dry, man. Walk away from it, come back, because the sanded high build primer that I use is very porous. It's going to draw a lot of that wax in. That's the most important part, is getting that to absorb that wax and dry and seal itself off. That's actually the most important part of it sealing itself off, is the absorption of the wax, not the stuff that dries on the surface. You can use a PVA film to spray it, but since we're going to build this into a seamed mold that clamps in place, or a seamed part that clamps in place, I can't use the PVA. I'll show you in a while as we get this. I'm just going to get this finished up and show you the bracket I'm going to mount on it. Okay, so what I did is I took an old piece of scrap metal, I bent it, that's going to be my seam. It's clecoed on there. I waxed the surface of that, and to get rid of this weird ass angle that's going to create a lot of voids, I'm going to use an ultrafine cloth. You see how smooth or tight that weave is? I'm using scrap pieces, so don't really get into it too much, but I'm going to put 2 layers of that on there, like that. And then I'm going to put some coarse cloth on that. See? I'm going to lay this up, and then when that hardens, I'll pull that off, and then I'll finish the whole part. But importantly, real quick, never set that in the sun. Like, don't laminate it and then go set it in the sun when you're using wax or basically anything. What'll happen is the UV light will go through it. It'll heat up that wax. It'll melt that wax. The wax will drain out, and then it'll stick to everything. So don't stick your parts in the sun when you're done with them. Let's look at this real quick. So that's that ultrafine on there, and you see down there in that radius where that air is, this ultrafine is the only thing that's going to get rid of that. So that ultrafine, you can see, is conformed all the way across. So I just poke that with a brush and get that out of there, and I can put my other coarser material on top of it. But that's the purpose of ultrafine, is to get into really, really detailed spaces. Okay, now if you look at that really tight angle right there, there's no cavasil in there, there's no fillers, it's all fiber strength. So that ultrafine material went in there, which has fiber tensile strength to it. So it has a plus minus weave tucked way down inside that sharp angle, and no shitty fillers like cavasil or that. The resin content in that sharp angle is very minimal to keep the tensile strength up and strong or whatever, but that's just some real basic shit to do in good parts. You know, you'll see people, they'll just smear a bunch of cavasil in there, or they'll put Bondo in there, or they'll put microspheres. There's all kinds of fillers that they'll put in that shit. And this is the way to do it without using all that stuff and making shitty parts. You can vacuum bag and use pre-preg materials, you know, but I don't want to sit here and bake this part. It's just a one-off. This is just how to do it when you hand lay something. You'll sit here and babysit that a little bit, and yeah, you'll end up with a good quality part. Okay, so I pulled that metal off. You can see I have a seam there. I put more wax on that right there, the seam, and wax that. You got to be really careful not to disturb the surface when you pull that metal off. And you see the cleco spots right there. I just filled those with wax. Technically, those are called tooling marks now. If you wanted to be a hero, you can go in there with an X-Acto knife and you can trim that back that's down here in this in that radius down there. I don't want to get in a lot of detail with this. I just want to get to the end of this project. That right there, you can take an X-Acto knife and you can trim that back. It's called knife trimming. But I'm not going to do that. We just want to get through this process, right? We want to make sure it fits. So I'm making a rapid prototype to fit it on there and see if it's going to work. I'm going to laminate this part now. So there it is, all laminated. I'm showing you my dirty little secret seams here, and this is kind of the part you don't want to show anybody because it doesn't look great. But there's a lot of information here to digest. One is that these seams, they're not all in one spot because I'm going to sand it down and make it look nice. You want a minimum of 1 inch of overlap over anything you do. So this one's overlapped 1 inch under, 1 inch under. So they're called staggered seams. Nothing really big about that. This one, you can see there's a staggered seam there and a staggered seam there because it's coming this direction, so it's underneath everything. Yeah, we'll get this set up and then I'll pop it apart and show you why I did it that way, because the part's going to flex there and there, so that's why I staggered my seams on those radiuses, because I put more material on that radius. See that? Because that's where the part's going to bend. There's the reason I do dumb stuff. So this thing is cured. It's the next day. I come out here to check it out. So of course what I did was I put Clecos in it to register it before I start pulling it apart. It's very important. You could probably put it back together and do it, but why not just do it this way? So I'm gonna stick some wedges in there. I'm gonna take those Clecos off and stick some wedges in there, and I'm gonna get this thing off this plug and start trimming it down to fit it in the side of the cruiser. Okay, I already got this thing all loosened up. So watch this. To get this out of there, see, it's gonna give me a little bit of flex. You don't wanna flex it too much, you can still break it. But I can just pick this thing up, do it one-handed, there you go, boom. Part's off there. I'm gonna trim this down, beautify it, sand my seams off of it, and then I'm gonna high build the shit out of it and sand it down, make it look nice. Real quick, because I know this is what a lot of people are thinking. They're like, why didn't you just 3D print that? Because I don't like using my printer. For one, this is gonna get real hot, so I don't want a piece of plastic in there. I could have made this on my 3D printer, the plug, which makes sense. I still would have had to sand my build lines down. It took me about, I don't know, an hour and 45 minutes to make that. When I figured in the time I sat down at my computer, set up my printer, and then the print time, I actually made that faster than a printer can. And sometimes I just like to work with my hands. I don't want that part made out of plastic from a printer. The heater's gonna be running through that, it'd warp the shit out of it. I guarantee it wouldn't last very long. So yeah, just in case you were wondering, I do have a printer. I do use it every once in a while. When I make a rubber mold for this, to make that out of rubber, I would use my 3D printer to make the plug and also make the mold thing for it, the mold box. But I'm not there yet, so stay tuned. Well, there it is, mocked up in place. I rough trimmed it. It's all right. I mean, this piece is bent and warped, so I'm not gonna be able to like go to the moon with it, but at least my defrost will work now. I was really worried about it. I could put like something in there, like some weather stripping or something. I screwed up this seam. I meant to put it down here. I wanted it this right here. So I'm gonna trim this down pretty low, and then I'm gonna aircraft rivet it together, and I'm gonna be done with it. I'm gonna primer that, sand it, make it look all nice. Whoever had this thing before me, man, they just like took it apart and didn't like, I don't know. It's like they tried to fix it on the side of the road in January when it was like 5 degrees outside. So it's just like everything is all halfway taken apart and put back together, all crappy. I got this thing because I made a bunch of airplane parts for a guy and he didn't pay me. And he said, oh, you can have that Land Cruiser. Because I found out where he lived, and I actually went to his house and knocked on his door, and I was like, hey dude, you got to give me something. And he's like, oh, you can have this Land Cruiser. And it was out in a field and all the tires were rotted off of it. And I was like, all right, does it run? And he's like, yeah, it runs great. And I'm not kidding you, man. I went out, I put jumper cables on it, poured some gas in the carburetor, and it started right up. And it's never broke down on me, ever, not once. This thing is unbelievable. Anyway, I'm gonna get that primered. Here we are in the dirty room, and you can tell I put all of the high build on that. All of it. So it's gonna run down and stick to that. That's why I put it on that, because then I can just pop it off there and sand all that. But yeah, I usually high build the shit out of fiberglass. I don't screw around with it. I just put it on there as thick as I can get it and then sand it. I mean, it might look bad now, but trust me, it's probably gonna look worse by the time I get done with it. Here it is, all sanded down. You can see the high build really did its job. There's still some low spots. I'm gonna shoot it again. That's what that high build's for. Just put it on there and fill in crap. I sanded like probably 75% of it off. But fiberglass, when you do this, when you coat the raw edge of it, it really takes a lot of material to fill in all that weave pattern and all that stuff. Well, there it is. I kind of scratched the shit out of it, sanding it. I just got in a hurry, but I'm gonna go ahead and throw it in there. I've ran out of time with this project, but it'll give you a general idea of how to do this. You know, this is something you can do in your garage at home. You don't need any special thing to do it. All you need is a paintbrush, some fiberglass, some resin, some Bondo, and no specialty tools, sanding block, you know, so that's pretty much it. It's pretty easy. You can see I put some aircraft rivets in it right there. I'm not even going to paint the inside of it, but I'll pop it in there and I'll be done with it. Okay, ta-da, it's done. I went from this piece of crap that somebody had duct taped in there that kept popping off to a solid piece. I mean, I'll probably find some mounts. It clamped down pretty good, but not as good as I wanted it to. I went ahead and I put the rivets on the inside since I wanted to put that seam on the bottom down there. I did it wrong, so I just flipped it over and put it in like that. That's a really easy fiberglass fabrication right there. Just dumb, you know. Now I have a plug. I can make another one if I wanted to, but it's a pretty fast one-off just for a part that's not available. I looked for them. Trust me, I would rather buy that, but I couldn't find it, so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna put the top back on this winter, and I'm gonna have a working defrost. All right, thanks for watching.